Hey guys, Ryan here. Finally getting around to the top 10 games of 2013 list. Probably should have been out a couple weeks ago, but whatever. So, just like last year, we'll start it off with a couple of honorable mentions. Games that I really enjoyed, and I think deserve more recognition, but don't belong on the top 10 games of 2013 list. So first up is Eudor Masters of the Broken World. On paper, this is the coolest strategy game. It combines elements of grand strategy, turn-based strategy, and turn-based tactics, and role-playing elements to create basically my wet dream. It's my favorite strategy game of the last year, but it's buggy as shit, and there's a long list of reasons why it isn't Game of the Year material. Mostly bugs. But if you're into things like Might and Magic Heroes, then you'll be really into Eudor Masters of the Broken World. It is the coolest game, but it is not top 10 material. Second up on this list, Trackmania 2. Trackmania is my favorite racing game, or well, it was. It is just insanity. Loop-de-loops and half-pipes and F1 cars. Sign me up, man. Trackmania 2, even better. Better graphics, better handling, more car types for Valley and Canyon. It's Trackmania on steroids, and I love it. I wouldn't consider it in my top 10 for the games of the year, but it was really close to making it on to the list. It's basically all I played for the summer, man. But let's get on to the actual list.
Putting it all on the line, Stanley, I like that.
Coming in at number 10 is The Stanley Parable. The Stanley Parable is a landmark game in how story is told. It's also one of the few actually funny games ever released. Comedy is really hard to do, and The Stanley Parable is one of the few games to even bother tackling it, and one of an even more limited number of games to do it well. It, however, is really lacking outside of its writing, in that there are almost no mechanics. It's the best not a game of the year. But since this is a list for games, The Stanley Parable clocks in early at number 10.
Oh, you really earned it, Stanley. Nothing could hold you back. Yes, I'm very proud of how far we've come today.
Coming in at number 9, Saints Row 4. Saints Row 4 is the only game where I can play a pirate with 2 peg legs and 2 hook hands who beats people to death with a giant blue tentacle while blaring "What is Love?" Enough said. Taking spot number 8, BIT.TRIP presents Runner 2, Future Legend of Rhythm Alien. Runner 2 is really good. It's one of the few games ever to hook me in so hard that I had to beat the entire game on the day of release. It's also the only rhythm game I've ever enjoyed, besides maybe Parappa the Rapper. I hate rhythm games, but I love Runner 2. I may not have played Runner 2 as much as other games this year, but I definitely enjoyed it more than a lot of the trash that was released this year. The visuals are charming as hell and the music is great. And that comes from a guy who pretty much hates all electronic or similar genres of music. Clocking in at number 7, Pikmin 3. Pikmin is the console RTS. Can you name an RTS game that is on console, that is good, that is also not in the Pikmin franchise? I bet you can't. Halo Wars was awful, and StarCraft 64 is one of the worst things to ever exist, which is why the local pawn shop wants $90 for it. Pikmin is literally the only franchise to be an RTS game on console that is playable, and it is more than playable. It is good. Pikmin 1 on the GameCube was super cool. Pikmin 2 was a step forward in some aspects and a step back in others. Or more aptly, a step too far. Pikmin 3 fixed most of what was wrong with the first 2 Pikmin titles, and while doing that, it also made the most graphically stunning game of the year in my opinion. The environments and lighting in that game are beautiful, and the water is fantastic. Pikmin 3, from a visual point, is just so appealing. It's way better than a game like Crysis 3, for example, and that's why it gets spot number 7. Stealing number 6 is Monaco. Monaco is the best co-op experience of the last several years. It's also the best heist game I've played. It isn't a stealth game, it's a heist game. And the biggest distinguishing feature of a heist game versus a stealth game is the pace. Monaco's pace is hugely different than that of a stealth game, and it made it the most compelling co-op experience of the year probably. Me and my friend played Monaco non-stop for 2 weeks until we finished every single level. Paired with that, a pretty awesome story, told purely through text and gameplay, and then paired with that, a fantastic fitting piano soundtrack, Monaco is just kind of this complete, fully realized, amazing co-op indie game, and that's why it takes spot number 6.
Booker, are you afraid of God?
No. But I'm afraid of you.
Coming in at number 5, BioShock Infinite. BioShock Infinite told one of the best stories in gaming ever, and features one of the best characters in gaming ever. Elizabeth is the Alex Vance of 2013. The world design is amazing, and the world building with their writing is fantastic. BioShock Infinite is also packed full of some of the most memorable sequences in gaming for me. The several sequences at the beginning are great. The lighthouse and church are great sequences. The opening into the town was mind-blowing. The beach sequence where Elizabeth dances, and then the final sequence where you return to Rapture. Infinite is seriously packed full of memorable moments, which is what sets it apart from the pack. I don't think I can think of a game with better writing than Infinite. The game is really average mechanically though. It's pretty much on par with Call of Duty and Battlefield, but that isn't enough to put Infinite at the top of the list for 2013. And that's why it comes in at number 5.
Elizabeth!
Hello! Oh, this is wonderful! Oh, come dance with me, Mr. Twin.
I don't dance. Come on, let's go.
Why? What could be better than this?
Taking spot number 4, Path of Exile. Path of Exile is everything I wanted Diablo 3 to be, and more. As someone who is seriously into reading giant charts and figuring out what would be the silliest and or most overpowered build, this game is for me. It's also super cool mechanically. Combat is just like every other Diablo-like, but the skill system is really solid and very different. Instead of just having an active skill tree, you find skilled gems that socket into your gear. Path of Exile is also the first action RPG to come up with an actual proper endgame, which makes it even better than Diablo 2, let alone that piece of crap Diablo 3. It's all the more impressive that this game is an independently developed and published game that is also the fairest free-to-play game other than Dota 2. If you enjoyed Diablo 2 or have any interest in action RPGs, you owe it to yourself to play this game. If you don't, you will regret it. Coming in at number 3, The Wonderful 101. Oh boy guys, here we are at the last 3 games, and I am ready for this internet rage, because they're all Wii U games, and I know that no one owns one of those, or even thinks anything on them is worth buying, but I don't care. The Wonderful 101 is this year's most wonderful game. Platinum, you did it again. The Wonderful 101 is a game where you control 100 little heroes and form giant weapons and smash aliens. For a game that I heard a lot of criticism about for looking kiddie or stupid, this is the most complete spectacle fighter I've played in a while. It certainly blows the trash heap that DMC was out of the water. It also has some really neat mechanics and ideas in the game, and is the only Wii U game that wasn't made by Nintendo that is doing awesome stuff with the gamepad. Paired with just being a mechanically excellent game that, regardless of what everyone else says, I think also controls really solidly, The Wonderful 101 is a seriously funny game. It is basically a parody of the Power Rangers and Sailor Moon, and it's amazeballs. If you own a Wii U, you owe it to yourself to get this game. And that's why The Wonderful 101 comes in number 3. claiming spot number 2, Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. I am a huge Monster Hunter fan, and Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate modernized all the things I wanted it to. With the Wii U gamepad, the UI is way cleaner, and the game on the new hardware is way more responsive, and with it actually running at 1080p, makes subtle tells easier to spot. Also, with a gamepad, we finally have reasonable voice communications in a Monster Hunter game. I'm also a huge Monster Hunter fan. It is easily my favorite franchise of all time. I bought a Wii U to play this game. Just this one. I don't care about any of the other ones. I pretty much thought since last year this game would come in number 1 on my list, but a late entry this year managed to surprisingly replace it. But that doesn't take anything away from how good Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate is. It's all of the greatness of Monster Hunter 3, with twice as many monsters and way more responsive controls. And it's way prettier, and the online's amazing, and way better. Seriously, everything about Monster Hunter 3 that you had complaints about have been pretty much fixed, besides the 6-hour tutorial. Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate is easily my most played game of 2013. That game came out in March. I have hundreds of hours into Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. I think I'm about to break 400 hours. That's not a joke. I'm serious. There's only one other game that I have clocked similar hours in, and that is Counter-Strike. Over years of time. Not months. Years. Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate has to be, at the very least, my second favorite game of the year, or else I wouldn't have played literally hundreds of hours of it. And that is why it takes spot number 2. And finally, in spot number 1, Super Mario 3D World. I pretty much knew this game was going to be near the top of the list from the moment they showed it on Nintendo Direct. I'm not traditionally a huge Nintendo fan, but this year they really brought it in my opinion, which certainly doesn't seem to be a popular opinion among anyone. I really didn't know that this game, though, would be my game of the year until the first night I had my friends over and we played this game for almost 8 hours. We intended to do a Christmas horror movie marathon, but instead ended up just playing Super Mario 3D World all night. Now that this game is out, it is very much the pinnacle of multiplayer platforming for me. Not only is this some of the best couch co-op I've ever played, it is easily one of the best 3D Mario games. First of all, it finally brings the 2D Mario formula of different sizes of characters and the flagpole to a 3D game. Secondly, it's not an easy game. Pretty much every Mario forever has been easy, but 3D World has plenty of hard levels, either in the main set of levels or in the bonus levels. For platforming enthusiasts, you'll probably find something decently challenging in here. This entry in the very long-running franchise brings a lot of new stuff to the Mario games, most important of which is the 3D co-op experience. Alongside bringing a bunch of new stuff to the series, it oozes polish. This game is very much complete, with no bugs or rough edges. Every level is great. Every song is great. There isn't anything bad about this game. It is literally a game with no blemishes. Is it the greatest game ever made? No, it isn't, but I'm sure when the new consoles are at the end of the lifespan, this game is going to be one of the games of the generation, not just of the year. And that's why it has to take spot number 1. It's a game that I can't say anything bad about. It's going to be one of the best games on this console, and one of the best games on Generation 8. I've been Ryan. This has been my top 10 for 2013. And I think it's a good one. I like these games. I love them. Hopefully, you'll take a look at some of the ones you haven't heard about, or games that you didn't have any interest in. Maybe you'll have some interest now. And here's to 2014 being a way better year in gaming than 2013. Remember to rate, sub, comment, and such, and we'll see you in 2014.